Be obvious that what I talked about, when you're dealing with volunteers, when you're dealing with people in smaller groups, people are less red tape inclined. And that's what I see in the groups that I've been involved in. And maybe we're wrong. Maybe those of us who volunteered, but maybe those who tried to do right in government should be more protective of the records, be more concerned with responding to those things. And a lot of times it is a personality issue. Why is this person asking me for, questioning my judgment? It's probably wrong, and we probably should do it, but it bothers us who are red tape concerned. I don't know an answer for it. I think that's going to be the situation from here until forever when you're dealing with volunteers.
Mr. Kimball?
Well, education's got to help. The Attorney General can't go out and run these audits himself, and a lot of public officials never get an open records request, so they really don't know how to respond. Or else they get one from the friendly local newspaper reporter that they know, and they know better than to fool with him. But it's really a matter of education, and I don't see anything else that the Attorney General could do, because, like I say, we can't really go undercover and make open records requests.
I think it kind of goes back to the first comment I made today, is just the fact that in the rural areas, and Mr. Kimball's exactly right, in that there's not a lot of open records requests, and people are reluctant to dive in, and they don't know what's the exceptions and what applies. And if we had a resource, the education is obviously the first step. I think we need a resource for them to go to, so they'll get a quick answer, know how to respond, because that 3-day period is pretty tough when you're trying to get a legal opinion as to what applies and what doesn't. And so I think that would be helpful. I think the one real problem that in this whole area that we all face is that as elected officials, that documents tell a lot of the story. They may tell all the story depending on the issue, but there's that fear that, well, only part of the story is getting out. I don't have a say. I can't tell you what else is going on. And there's that reluctance to let out part. And that's just something that, as we are more open in our government and people feel freer to express themselves and tell what those documents really reflect, I think that would be better behoove all of us.
Mr. Conley.
Thank you, Judy. I go back to my response to the earlier question about the 2006 law, which required the Attorney General to prepare educational materials on the open records law. It is a function of education. Someone working in Frankfurt, working in the governor's office, is going to see several hundred open records requests in a year. If you show up at the desk of a rural sheriff and start demanding to see his property tax rolls, he's probably going to tell you, where, that you don't want to comply or may not want to comply. And it may just be a function. I'm not saying it may just be a function. I'm not seeing that all that often. Again, I go back to the education component. Provide the educational materials. As was just said, provide a resource to those offices if they have any questions, so that they can contact the Attorney General's office, and then make yourself available for training. I just think it's a function of familiarity, and anything we can do to make local elected officials more familiar with their responsibilities under the law, I think that's for the better.
Mr. Bullock.
Thank you. I agree with the idea of more education, especially for the rural areas, and that is in keeping with my idea that we should have conferences that are sponsored by the Attorney General's office on open meetings and open records. I think we have to recognize, however, that there are some individuals who simply don't believe in open records and open meetings. They've been doing business their way for many years and want to continue doing it their way, and they don't want the public to know. So in keeping with that, it's my judgment that we should make certain that the penalties are significant enough and that they should be aware of the penalties so that they will be deterred from hiding records or engaging in closed meetings.
One more question on open government. Dr. Ryan.
I'm curious about which past Attorney General you might admire the most. Is there a role model? Is there someone whose term most impressed you and might give us some idea of what your term might be?
Mr. Coleman, start here.
When was the last Republican?
1943.
That's tough. You know, I take a little bit of all of them that I've known along the years. I've worked probably closer with Ben Chandler than I did some others. I think Dave Armstrong was a strong attorney general because he had some experience. He had been a prosecutor. He had known what prosecution was about, and we haven't had that in a long time.
Mr. Kimball.
I've always, like Dave Armstrong, I didn't really follow his career as Attorney General very much. And to answer Mr. Coleman's question, I think the last Republican Attorney General was elected in 1903. And interestingly enough, the governor was a Democrat. So that can happen.
Mr. Larson.
Well, I didn't know the man who was Attorney General in 1903. I've been treated decently by Greg Stumbo's office, by Fred Cowan's office, by almost every Attorney General who's been in office. I disagree with some of the things they've done. Separation